want their story.
Right? In a world where tomorrow's blockbusters reign
And yesterday's classics are forgotten. 3 women intend to remember.
Hey everyone, welcome to Millennials at the Movie House, the podcast where 3 friends watch older movies and review them from our modern, everyday perspectives. I'm Betsy.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Serena.
And today we watched Charade, 1963, written by Peter Stone and Mark Bem, directed by Stanley Donen. And I'm going to add a couple extra people in here today. Music by Henry Mancini, and Hepburn's costumes are by Givenchy, because those are 2 big names. So just throwing those in there as well. Starring Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, Walter Matthau, James Coburn, George Kennedy, and Ned Glass. Quick synopsis, Tracy, go.
So I knew it was coming this time.
I saw it. You were not surprised.
I was not surprised. However, I tried to practice beforehand, and
it's just going to be worse. It's going to be worse instead of off the cuff.
So, Charade.
I know. I always say it charade.
But in conversation, I don't. Anyway, okay. So we have Regina, who is on vacation with her friend and her friend's little kid, and she tells her friend that she is not in love with her husband anymore. She's going to get a divorce. There, she meets a very suave American man. Fast forward to her going home, and her entire apartment is empty of everything. And she runs into a man who introduces himself as a detective or inspector or something. And he says that her husband sold off everything in the house and then wound up dead. And now, so she's upset, shocked, everything. And come to find out, the husband that she never really knew that she knew was some secret agent. And the husband and 3 other men stole money during the war and hid it to find it later. So these men come to his funeral to make sure he's really dead, and they're all chasing her. So not only is the government looking towards her to find this money that these men stole money from, the men that want to recover the money also are chasing her and trying to kill her to get the money back. Enter in the guy that she met on vacation. He is also looking for this money, but he's the nice guy. So she is falling in love with him because they have a good back and forth. It's just it's very confusing. So people try to kill her. These henchmen end up dying because somebody's killing them as well. The guy that she starts to who is Cary Grant, is also lying about who he is. So he has now changed his identity 3 or 4 times. And everybody is not who they say they are. And at the very end, we learn that the detective isn't the detective, but one of the bad guys. And the guy who's been lying to her, who she's been falling in love with, is the real detective. It's all crazy. But I think at the end, and I'll talk about this later, it's all good because the guy that she's falling for and the guy that the audience kind of falls for ends up being the good guy.
Right.
Thank
So
God.
I know. All those vibes you were having, you were okay, those were not real, but
you wanted him to be good, and
yes.
you got a good guy.
Yeah. That. So it was just, whew.
Good job. Admirable effort.
It's complex.
It is a very convoluted story.
It is. It's both simple and that's why I was okay, I'm going to do this. This will be easy. And then I tried to explain it to myself, and I had issues. Part
of it was the way that they unfolded the story. They gave you a little bit of information at a time, but you had to fit it in. It's not chronologically explained to you. So you kind of have to fit it in as you go, which can be frustrating.
I feel a little confusing there, but
all good. We got there. All right. Well, how did everyone like it?
I liked it.
Even with the confusion, I still liked it.
Good. Yeah, it was fun. I liked the chemistry was good. The bad guys were creepy. They were almost cartoonish, but real. It was good.
Agreed. Serena, what did you think of it?
I enjoyed it, and I think that the on-screen chemistry is what did it for me.
Yeah,
Though
they
the
had
plot
good
was a
chemistry.
little bit confusing at times. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. Even though there was some confusing parts. I liked it.
Well, especially the first scene with them together, you saw their back and forth, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
a match made
I'm
in
here
heaven
for
right
it.
here.
Yeah. This was my first Cary Grant movie, I think. And I think I've only seen Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but it was a really long time ago and I was not impressed. I don't know why. I feel like that deserves a rewatch from me.
With Breakfast at Tiffany, I if you don't like it, you don't like it. I don't think it's not a mood thing where sometimes if you're in the wrong mood when seeing something, like you go back to it and you're fine.
I went into it with really high hopes because of that song. And I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's?
Yeah. I mean, if the singer of that song and his girlfriend both liked it, then
that
come
movie.
on.
And I was like, well, clearly I'll like this movie. And I didn't.
And you did not. But so it was your first Cary Grant and it was your second Audrey Hepburn. Serena, what about you? Had you ever seen a Cary Grant or Audrey Hepburn before?
Neither that I'm aware of, and I'm so happy I did because I've been meaning to do a little deep dive on Audrey Hepburn after watching Gossip Girl years and years back when Blair Waldorf, i.e. Leighton Meester, referred to herself as, her goal was to be, a classy establishment, so to speak. And I was like, well, who is this classy establishment? And then I never did research. So thank you for expediting that process for me.
I feel like people who haven't seen Audrey Hepburn, she's so like iconic in fashion and just Hollywood that you know who she is and you know what she looks like.
She's like Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
You've never necessarily seen her movies, but you obviously, her face, her fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, not to say Marilyn Monroe isn't classy, because I don't want to like diss on her. I love her, but she's like a brunette icon.
She's not the bombshell. She's the,
I
don't want to say girl next door either, but she's different.
She's who we wished we got in American in Paris.
Yes.
She's the Parisienne, lady. Yes, I got you. I will say this: I've seen several Cary Grant movies, and this is one of his latest films. I want to say he only did a couple more before retiring. And I'm same with you. I think the only Audrey Hepburn I'd seen is Breakfast at Tiffany's. So
you know what? I lied. I've seen North by Northwest.
Oh, okay. He's definitely a Hitchcock guy. But
which leads us to, I thought the most interesting description of Charade was that it was the most Hitchcockian movie that Hitchcock never made.
Right. Well, and from what I read, it sounded like people thought it was Hitchcock because of the way it was presented and Cary Grant and the mystery genre and all that stuff. It definitely did have moments that were, especially like some of the shots that Serena, you were calling out. They were very Hitchcockian.
Yeah. There were certain scenes that stood out to me that were, I don't know, they were just different. They were unique. Unique camera shots, unique angles, shadows, play with lighting. And of course, I didn't write the scenes down, so I can't like exactly label which ones, but you know what I mean.
I do remember the first one you called out was the mortuary. The camera was in the drawer.
Yep.
Yeah, that was effective.
Yep. That was really cool. I feel like it just made this movie stand out. And I don't know, I haven't seen a ton of 1963 films, but it was pretty good. They had to do more like raw talent. It had to be more like raw talent that
which is why the chemistry and the dialogue was so good.
Yeah. This movie would have been a bomb if it didn't have the chemistry between the two main actors.
Oh my God.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I also point out before we kind of get into things that this is another one that was based on a short story?
Of course it was.
But it was unique in the screenplay was written by Peter Stone. He's the one who wrote the short story, but he actually originally wrote it as a screenplay called The Unsuspecting Wife, and nobody picked it up. So he was like, fine, I'm going to turn it into a novel, a short story. And he renamed it into Charade. And I don't know if it was like published in a magazine or something like that. And somebody read it and was like, oh, we should turn this into a movie. And he was like, yeah,
That's all I had
Welcome
to do.
to
That's all I
the
wanted to
party.
do in the first place. So
Welcome
I
to
thought
the
that was kind
party.
of cool. Yeah.
Nice. Since we're giving out little tidbits, I did come across something interesting. This movie is in the public domain. And
Yeah.
the reason it's in the public domain is because Universal didn't properly put the copyright notice at the beginning of the film. So the moment it was released, it was put into the public domain and has been there ever since. And so because of that,
Wow.
you can find it on archive.org.
Wow, interesting.
All right, so let's hop into our questions. Top of the marquee. What was everyone's favorite part?
Can I go first? Because I only
Go.
have one and we already kind of half said it.
Mhm.
The chemistry.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
I immediately perked up as soon as I realized that the witty convo, the on-screen chemistry between Hepburn and Grant, and just all of the funny quotes that came out of those two and their conversations that
Mhm.
made the movie for me. 100% made the movie.
I'm totally with you. I actually put the exact same thing. And I think a
Oh.
lot of it had to do with the fact that they were on the same level.
Yes.
The actors were on the same level. They had that same confidence in their abilities. And so you kind of could read that off of each other. You could tell that they kind of got along because of that.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Tracy, what was your favorite part?
I had a couple of little scenes that I really, really liked that I want to point out, because I think my favorite part is, like Serena says, that chemistry, but I had little scenes that really had nothing to do with anything that I really liked. So I really liked the funeral scene when the bad guys came to check to see if her husband was really dead. And they each had like their own way of checking it. And it was so, I feel like we hadn't really gotten into the funny part of the movie yet, where it was so outrageous that this guy would like come up and stick him with a pin or say something crazy or check his breathing
or sneeze on him.
Yeah, it was just kind of bizarre.
It was almost like slapstick.
Yeah,
Yes,
a little
yes.
bit.
Right?
So it kind of like gave a new air to the movie or something. So because I think they had said that it bridged like 3 different genres, that like thriller, comedy, romance.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it really, so that was good. That was a good scene.
Well, and it's funny you say that in that order, because I feel like that was the order we were presented. Because
Yeah.
we first got the death, immediately got the death. So there's the thriller. Then we got the comedy and that was the funeral.
Yeah.
And then we got the romance because Peter Grant, I almost said Peter Grant, Peter Joshua or Cary Grant then kind of became the character.
Yeah.
So.
I liked, there was a small moment when Cary Grant is chasing the bad guys. First off, that was the whole scene was great when he jumped out of the window into another balcony and into their room. And at this point, you don't know that he's in on it.
Yes.
That whole scene was great because he jumped across a window and there was Alistair and Pamela. You never see them. You just hear this conversation of a
Alistair and
couple in a
Pamela.
hotel room.
Yeah.
And it's just great. You just have this whole mini story of a quick dialogue between them. And it's just because he pauses outside their window and it's awesome. And so he continues on into the next balcony. He kind of just casually sits on the edge of this balcony listening to the bad guys. And he does it with such confidence. I don't know what it is, but I really like this scene. And then he just jumped through the window and he was like, "Hey guys." And they're like, "Hey, bud."
But that's why, like, the confidence, it was so weird. Like, you were like, why is he so comfortable there in that moment? And then you find out it's because
and then you find out.
Yeah.
they're okay
I thought
with him
the same
being there.
thing.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
was like,
didn't
what's happening?
necessarily see that coming.
No, neither did I.
I knew there was something, but I didn't see that, which I pride myself in guessing what's happening, but I also like to be surprised. So I always give a shout out, to that. I also liked part of getting the bad guy was they ended up at a theater, like an empty theater. And we got to see behind the scenes of a theater under the stage of where the trap doors were. I thought that was really clever way of having a mechanic that is real. Like that's a real thing. They didn't have to, it wasn't believable. They didn't have to, like, maybe they did build it for this movie, but that was a real like stage
Setup.
trick.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was good. But so my favorite part is the chemistry between them two, but specifically coupled with the throwback lines. I love when things repeat themselves. I said it before and I'll say it again. And every time that Audrey Hepburn found out that Cary Grant wasn't who he said he was, they would have this conversation of, oh, well, is insert his new name. Is there a Mrs. insert new name? And he goes, yes, but we're divorced. Yes, but we're divorced. And it like,
we started saying the line
we
with
started
him.
saying the line. She started saying the line that, yes, but we're divorced. And at the very end, when he tells her who he really is, she asks if there's a Mrs. And he goes, yes, but she's my mother.
Yeah.
And it was just brilliant. I like, not that it mattered. She's a widow at this point. Not that it would have mattered at all, other than if he was single or not, but it just made him that much more, I don't know, appealing, I guess. I don't know what it was, but it was cute. I thought
endearing.
It was a good little, yeah.
He was definitely funny. He had personality.
He
did. He wasn't
the
just
shower
like
scene, I think, was what finally sold you, Serena, I feel like.
Oh my gosh, I was dying. I forgot about the shower. That was so funny. Guy gets in full suit in the shower.
I don't really know Cary Grant that well, but the little bit of research I did before this podcast is that he was funny. He was a little bit of a goofball. And I feel like I thought that the shower scene was a little over the top, but he was still cute. At the end, when she walked in and he was the good guy, he made this funny face that was so like, I feel like that was actor making that face compared to like, I don't know, maybe it wasn't, but I thought that was funny. And
I think I mentioned this during the watching, but that is every character I've ever seen Cary Grant as. He plays that really charming, kind of sarcastic, confident guy, and it works every time. But you kind of get the sense that kind of just really is who he is,
which made me want to watch more Cary Grant movies.
Absolutely.
Not to mention, he is handsome.
Yes,
he really is cute.
He is handsome, classic Hollywood handsome.
Yes. So let's go back to their chemistry for a second, because the age difference is a big thing to note here. There's a 25-year age difference, which back then I guess wasn't, unheard of, obviously. But the interesting thing to note is that because of that, supposedly, I was reading an article, but supposedly because of that age difference, Cary Grant insisted that Audrey Hepburn's character was the one to instigate all of the romance.
Yes.
And because of that, it showed, but because of that, it weirdly gave her an active character,
Yes.
Like she was choosing that. I kind of really liked that. And it just came down to the fact that Cary Grant just wasn't comfortable with that age difference.
Which makes me actually respect him as an actor and as a man. Like he recognizes that he is too old for her. Mm-hmm. And because of that, and that was going to be one of my like issues with, did it age well or whatever, it kind of made up for it. And I don't know if we read the same article, Bets, because I noticed that too. He asked to have not only her be the pursuer, but to have dialogue put in there that not only the actor, but the character recognized the age difference.
Right.
And because at first we were like, why is he calling her kid and child? And he made reference to her being a Juliet and like really young. So he asked to have that dialogue put in there and they did. They allowed it in there. And I think it did. It made everybody at ease, and because it made her aware that or everybody on screen aware that there was an age difference, but she didn't care,
right?
Because she was the pursuer,
right? That said, she was 33.
Yeah,
she did not look 33 to me.
No, he looked younger too, I thought.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna insert a quote here, if that's okay. And so she's been kind of pursuing him, and she goes like, "Oh, it's disappointing that all you want is, to learn that you weren't really, attracted to me. You were attracted by the money." And he goes, "Well, what do you expect me to say? That a pretty girl with an outrageous manner means more to an old pro like me than $250,000? And she's like, "Well, I guess not." Then he goes, "Well, it's a toss-up. I can tell you that." And she goes, "What did you say?" And he goes, "Hasn't it occurred to you that I'm having a tough time keeping my hands off you?"
Yeah.
I don't know why this little like conversation, because she picked up on the fact that he wasn't reciprocating, and she was disappointed by it because I think she really did like him. And this was the point where he's like, "No, I'm trying," even though at this point we think he's a bad guy, he's still trying to be a professional bad guy, and he recognizes the age difference. But this is the point where he's like, "No, can't you see that I'm restraining myself. I'm trying to show you respect. And I love that.
And that's where what I was going to say was so if you think about it, at the end of the day, he works for the embassy. He actually does work for the embassy. So I feel like that was him trying to be professional. Like you said, he's on the job. He's not trying not to mix business with pleasure.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, speaking of the good chemistry, that will lead us into our next question. So
I think that's the first time we had all the same favorite part.
I think so.
Kudos.
So.
Good job.
That's
Audrey Hepburn,
impressive.
Cary Grant.
It's so clearly the best part of the movie. Anyway, so speaking of their chemistry, I think that leads us into our next question, which is the Wheel of Questions. And this week we landed on recasting. So if the movie was made nowadays, who would be in this movie? So we're going to recast the top 3 characters. Serena, if you had a time machine and could put any cast together, who would you put? Okay.
Yeah, that's the question.
All right, Serena, you go first.
I make up my own rules. All right, Regina, hands down, Natalie Portman.
Okay. All right, that's good.
I don't know. It's just the look, and
they actually compare her a lot to Audrey Hepburn.
Yep, she can do it.
And
she can do that.
She's so pretty. Natalie Portman has this classy brunette look about her, and honestly, I think she's a fantastic actress. So, all right, obviously, Peter, sorry, Trey, I might be stealing yours, but obviously he's George Clooney.
Obviously.
I say obviously until you hear mine, but okay, go ahead.
Well, okay, and now that you guys have told me the age difference is 25 years, this lines up perfectly because Natalie Portman is 39 and George Clooney is 59. So there's a 20-year gap there.
Yep.
And then for Bartholomew, I did Burt Reynolds. So Bat is Burt.
Bat is
and
Burt.
Turns out
basically all Serena did was recast the mustache.
She did.
I
so
did.
Good.
I couldn't not. And he's 82 in real life. But honestly, I don't think that the age matters as much for his character because there was no kind of...
That's true.
That is true. That's fair.
Romance. And he could have been on the edge of retirement / living out his retirement years doing, cold cases or whatever the heck he was doing.
You know what? You're right. He could have been retired and came back in because he had a connection to the World War II story. And so he knew all the guys from World. Listen, I know I got you.
I'm laughing because I appreciate, because you do this a lot for me where you're like, I will fix this world for you. So it makes sense. Here are the new rules that you're going to, and you fix it.
I got you.
She has fixed so many things for our broken mindset, Trey. Like, she has just really put us there.
My job.
I feel like she kind of did like a Westworld thing for us, Like she is like the creator of Westworld for us. And we're living in like whatever Westworld
we're living in Betsy's Westworld.
You guys aren't supposed to know that. I'm going to have to reset you. Damn it.
Yep. Reset.
All right, Tracy, your grouping. Good grouping, Serena.
Okay.
That was a fun one.
All right. I'm going to throw out there not my joke one, but the one that I thought was obvious, but the one that I didn't really like.
Okay.
So I did George Clooney because he's so, we even said, everybody says that he looks like Cary Grant. He has that vibe where he's that classic.
He doesn't just look like him. He acts like him too.
Acts like him.
Yeah.
He's that classic Hollywood handsome, a little bit of a goofball.
Confident, suave.
Yes. So then
Same
I thought,
face shape.
Yep. To his Cary Grant, I thought Anne Hathaway would be a good Audrey Hepburn.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Perfect.
I was gonna say, you don't like Audrey. You don't like Anne Hathaway.
I don't. So I was like, you know what? George Clooney is too obvious. I'm sure she's a very nice person, but I'm not a fan of her selected works.
Yes.
Of Anne Hathaway. So I tried to go younger, but I was having issues with the ages. But I think a good Audrey Hepburn would be Lily Collins.
Okay. That is young.
That is very young. Yeah. She's 31, 32 right now.
But honestly, she reads like 23, maybe.
I know. But if you look at her, she's got the look.
She does.
She looks like Audrey Hepburn.
Yes. And you know what? She's got the poise too.
She does.
Yeah,
she does. So if then I had my age gap where I was like, I didn't want it to be a big age gap because I don't like that. I like, at first I was thinking Josh Duhamel. He's got the great salt and pepper hair. I think he would be a good little spy, but I think a little bit younger. I cast Chris Pine.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I
Lily
will say
Collins,
yes to anything
Chris
that you
Pine.
put Chris Pine in.
Yep, because I think he can do the serious and the funny. He's done spy. What was it? He did some spy movie, and he does the Wonder Woman.
Yep.
And then
you could play like he would be good at playing is he a good guy or a bad
Yeah,
guy?
that's-
You want him to be a
yes.
good guy. Yep. I got
Yep, that's what I read him as. And then Bartholomew, I don't really like this answer, but this is what I got, is Bradley Cooper. I
Okay.
think he could be, you know how we were
Yep.
like, he's
I
at the
almost
beginning,
looked
we
at
were
that.
like, he's a little bit unprofessional. What is going on right now with this character?
My God,
I feel
Yeah.
like
sandwich
Bradley
eating.
Cooper
Oh
could
my
like just
God.
put like a 5 o'clock shadow on, kind of, gruff looking, I'm gonna eat in front of you type, like, but
hated that,
I'm
hated
also
that.
kind of good looking, but I know I'm good looking to not this other guy in the movie, but this is how I picture Bradley Cooper playing this, where he's like,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got you. All right,
That was my
that
least
good. That
favorite
was good.
part. That was the eating food, the lunch thing.
Well, and it's funny because in hindsight, I think it was purposefully put there so that we didn't like this guy.
yeah,
Like like from the start, we were supposed to be like, what is going on with him?
like this is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was put there, I think, to also drive home the fact that it was his lunch break,
Mhm.
which we find out, which is how he slipped into the office to begin with, is because the guy was on lunch. He wasn't in the office.
Makes sense.
That's a good point. It was a cue for the audience. Good
Yes.
call, Tracy. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Snaps.
All right, so my recast. I think that Audrey Hepburn doesn't get enough due for the dry comedy she did in this role.
Okay.
It's very dry comedy, but she has fantastic timing, and there are definitely moments there where you're like, oh my God, this character is just quirky almost. So I kind of leaned into that with Regina for the recast. So I have her cast as Leslie Mann. So, and then for Cary Grant, I had Robert Downey Jr. And
Oh,
for
good call.
Bartholomew, I have Joel McHale. But going back to Robert Downey Jr., I think that I feel like George Clooney is just a little bit too old, and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
is like the next step down.
Is he younger?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not. I'm thinking of George Clooney in what was the most recent movie he did? He was like an old man
55.
in the most recent movie he did. Anyway, okay. Good job, guys. Recasting. Good job. All right. Wait a minute. How has this movie influenced or been influenced by other movies? So I feel like this was kind of like a caper movie almost. And there are a couple of, the only two movies that I wrote down were Catch Me If You Can, which has that kind of throwback vibe and
Yes.
different identities and kind of just playing the people you're with type thing. And then the other one was Ocean's 11, and that kind of leaned towards the George Clooney vibe too.
I also got the Ocean's 11 vibe, but I can't tell if it was because of that the movie felt like a caper, or if it was because I was getting such a strong George Clooney vibe that's all I could think of was, I was like, oh, okay. And I think this also led to me thinking that Cary Grant was going to be like the good bad guy. You know what I mean? Like I thought he was going to be a bad guy, but one that we kind of are like, oh, okay, well, they're going to find the money and the two of them are just going to run off together and steal this money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought.
Because
That's what I thought.
another quote says, there's no law against stealing stolen money.
Right.
So that's why I really was kind of shocked that he was the good guy, because I thought it was going to go via Ocean's 11 where he was the good bad guy.
Or
there was definitely that twist at the end there. I wasn't expecting either.
Go the route of Mr. Right, where she just jumps right in and becomes the criminal as well.
Yes. Yep. Which I almost recast them as those two.
One of the only age differences. It's okay.
I don't know why.
But I didn't. Yeah, those were the only ones that really jumped out for me in terms of other movies.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's good too, to kind of have it be a little bit original.
Yeah. All right, ladies, please remove your hats and silence your cell phones. How did this film hold up?
I think it did well.
We kind of touched on some of the sticking points that we had already, but I think in general, yeah, like you said. I will say there was a lot of talking, which sounds ridiculous, but so much of the story is given to us through
exposition.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just a change in the way we take in information, but I feel like there had to be more show don't tell in the movie to make it really, really stand up to the test of time. But in general, I mean, that's such a little thing. In general, this is such a great movie and really holds up.
I think I even had said while we were watching it, like, this is a long movie.
Yeah.
Like it was a little bit long. You're right. It was a little too like.
At some point toward maybe 2/3 of the way in, I was like yawning, and it's not necessarily that I was bored by the plot. It was more like it was a lot. It's like when you're in a lecture in class and you're just like yawn, even if you're not tired, it's just a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a section of the movie that was just like a lot of blah, blah, blah and less smooching. So
I think that's Serena's like all the time. There could have been more kissing.
There could have been more.
There
kissing.
literally.
But generally speaking, and I mean, this is one of the more famous movies that we have chosen, and it has stood the test of time. People have watched it. It is on TV. It is remembered as one of Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant's, like, you know, top movies and all that jazz. So,
and all that jazz.
I will say, side note, I will say I have seen this movie once, many, many, many years ago. And the only thing you remember? I remember the only thing I remember was stamps.
And she was so good, Tracy, not to blow that spot up and ruin it for us.
So I'm going to jump right into Boom, We Fixed It, because I have a comment about stamps.
Okay.
So my only problem with the stamps being the grand finale, the big ending, is that at no point were we given a shot of the envelope with the stamps on it. Like it was always kind of like a wide shot, and we didn't see the envelope very well. It was always kind of like a side angle. And I understand the point was to emphasize the letter, to throw us off from the envelope, but at no point
you still have to give it to us. Did you really
even notice that there was a stamp there? And there was a quick little tiny throwaway line at the very beginning where she was going to give Jean-Louis some stamps, and that was it. That was the only point of reference for the fact that stamps had anything to do with the plot.
That was the absolute all-time smallest clue there ever was.
So
to a point where I was like, they made such a point of going to the dentist and
I know.
So like, they're like, what's in his bag? Oh, this letter that you have to assume had a stamp on it, or he has a toothbrush and tooth powder, and has a note written to you saying your dentist has been rescheduled. I was like, oh, it's going to be at the dentist office, or it's going to be, you know.
And I'm
but maybe
still
that
wondering.
Was maybe that was the point.
Well, right, but if that had been a red herring, they would have gone after that clue, but they didn't. They ignored that clue as well.
They did make a funny about it, though. They were like, when we called your dentist, and they're like, what did it say? Your appointment has been rescheduled.
Yeah,
which was a funny line, like that.
And the mint flavored heroin, like it. Yes. But I want to be able to figure it out as well, and I want to be able, when the twist comes, I want to be able to be like, oh my god, why did I miss that? I should have gotten that, but there was no indicator. That's my only problem. That's it.
Good point.
All right, note roundup.
I think I should have said this in a different section. So wait a minute, but I'll say it here.
Wait a minute.
The henchmen, who shout out to the henchmen again. They were creepy. They were great. They were all of them were different that you could like. Anyway, when Tex died, I think he was asphyxiated or something.
He had a plastic bag over his
head.
So
I don't know how he quite did this as he was asphyxiated, but he was able to scratch into the carpet, which I love because everybody's done that as a child, where like you can like opposite direction.
Yep.
He scratched into it the name of the bad guy who killed him, which is very reminiscent of Sherlock. I mean, that's Sherlock Holmes right there, like right out of the book Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. So I thought that was a brilliant throwback to like the traditional mystery, and just a beautiful homage.
Yes, agreed. My first note is about the opening credits.
Yes.
It is the most 60s opening credits like ever. I thought we were watching James Bond for a second. It was so quintessential.
It was vibes of Jetsons meets Pac-Man for drawing, you know.
Yes. Yep. and they're
Not
just
drawing.
they are just always fabulous. It's one of my favorite parts about 60s movies is the opening credits. For whatever reason, they always go that weird, colorful pattern route. I love it.
Well, you know what I think it is? It's like, I think we've talked about this before too. Things in the 60s, and now more so coming back more so than ever, the drive-ins, they cater to everyone wants to go get popcorn, and then they're, like Grease, Grease is like the classic.
Yep.
Although I don't remember exactly what year Grease was, but I mean, think about it. Like, for some reason, because we used to go to the drive-in a lot as kids, and there was that good long introduction, colorful, fun, whatever, keep you interested, but gives you a chance to do a quick pee break if needed, etc.
Can I interrupt both of you? And the little trivia that I was reading about, I wasn't like, it didn't hit a chord with me until you said that, Bets, is they specifically mentioned the guy who does the title credits is Maurice Binder. And apparently he's famous for making the James Bond title credits. Like, he was an American film title designer. That's what he did. So
there we go. Back when that was still a job.
Right.
Because going back to what Serena said, we don't do opening credits nowadays the way that they did back then.
Right.
Yeah.
So
any other notes, everybody? Oh, I have a quote. I wrote down a quote, guys. I never do this.
Whoa.
I know.
Oh,
I
know.
know.
She has a quote. Everybody sit down.
I know. It was, she says, I'm beginning to think women make the best spies.
Oh, yeah.
Which I feel like is very accurate. And especially coming out of World War II. This is 1963. This is coming out of World War II. And more and more these days, we're getting these stories of women being, doing their part and being being spies, and men underestimating them, quite honestly. And that was the point of that quote, is that they kind of are underestimated. So,
yep. And I think there's a throwback. Isn't there a throwback line where he says, well, women do make the best spies, or something like that?
Yes. Agents.
Yeah.
And
agents.
Then they switch
agent.
out
That's what it was.
That's
what it was. Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, and then also I love her coats. And then those are all my notes.
Yeah, I love her quotes, and those are all my notes.
I have 3 quotes.
Okay, go for it. Oh yeah, you went down a quote rabbit hole, didn't you?
I totally did. 100% guilty. And that quote rabbit hole led me to fail at the rest of my notes. But so Reggie Hepburn says, why do people have to tell lies? And Peter / Cary Grant says, usually it's because they want something. They are afraid the truth won't get it for them. And
that's a good line.
Couldn't agree more. And honestly, it speaks to certain people's characters. So that was one. And then the other quote, which was super cute and plays to their chemistry and kind of almost like something I say to people, which you guys are going to know. Basically, she says to Cary Grant, Hepburn says to Grant, do you know what's wrong with you? And he goes, no, what? And she goes, nothing. And I actually think she's like, nothing's wrong with you. But the quote ended there. But she's like, nothing's wrong with you. And you guys hear me say this all the time. Like, you're perfect. You're literally perfect. You're perfect.
Yeah.
Love you. You're perfect.
That was a really good back and forth. Yeah.
That was her way of saying, no, like, you're literally perfection. Nothing's wrong with you.
Well, and it goes back to the idea that she was actually very forward and independent in her thinking. She wasn't afraid to shy away from that. I don't care if I'm going to be rejected, I'm still going to say this. You don't get that a lot. She was very confident in her opinion, even if it was just opinion on having a crush on him, but still.
she was unapologetically herself. I have one more quote. So this is enter the scene where she's in the phone booth. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
And she's been spooked literally by, a couple of different of the henchmen. Is that what we're calling them?
Yeah, that's what they are.
I like that. Yeah.
Then Cary Grant comes in. He is just like, hey, what are you doing in here? And she's like, well, I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Yes.
Just to the point. I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Yep.
And once again, unapologetically herself, not hiding her emotions.
But at the same time, it was a comedic moment. That was a funny line coming out of her.
Yeah. But that's it. It's a wrap for me.
Trey, did you have any other notes?
Just that the henchmen were creepy, but that was a good thing. And I hated the little kid. I hated
Oh
the
my
annoying
God,
little
Sean.
kid.
My God.
Not only did
John.
I didn't think he was a great actor. Like, where did they pick this kid up? He had to be dubbed over. Like, he couldn't even get his lines right. Like, all of his lines were horribly dubbed.
What mother allows their child to squirt water guns at random people outside in a
A snowstorm.
Right. Like,
In
oh
their
my
face.
God.
Squirts the water in their
Just-
face.
Like, just.
Ooh. Yeah.
I
So I'm glad
yeah.
you guys are saying that, because you guys know I work with kids, and
Mhm.
there is zero BS policy up in there. So
Mm-mm,
there would be
mm-mm.
none of that.
So, okay. Good notes. Good notes.
I liked it, and I would definitely watch it again. It was cute. It was a cute movie.
Yeah. And actually, I feel like I must have seen bits and pieces of this on television before, because
Yeah.
at the very, like, the last moment, I was like, I know this movie.
It was literally the
Yeah,
last
the
frame of the movie.
literally the
last
last
shot
closing
of the
frame.
movie.
And I don't
The
know if it
last-
was just like, I don't know, a famous scene of the two of them or something that I've just seen before.
Mhm.
But all of a sudden I was like, I know where this comes from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. The Martini Shot. Would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I would.
Yes.
I think it's a soft yes.
That's, oh my God, I wrote soft yes.
Like,
So
I-
funny.
I enjoyed it. I liked it, but I think I've recommended movies over this.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think they both have, as much as we loved their chemistry, I think both those actors had better movies.
Yeah.
So if you had to watch one Cary Grant, it wouldn't be this.
Yeah. But this
Yeah.
was good. For their chemistry alone, I would recommend it.
Yes, definitely. I in the Betsy rankings, I put it's worth a shot. Oh, no, sorry, it's worth a watch. It's worth a
It's
watch.
worth a watch.
Worth a watch. Yeah, I'm here for the making out. I'm here for the kissing.
So funny.
There
sorry.
wasn't much of it, but I'm here for the chemistry.
There wasn't
I
much of
came
it,
for
but
the-
it kind of came on really suddenly.
Yeah.
I came for the mystery rom-com and stayed for the chemistry.
That's there are worse things to stay for.
But yeah, I think soft yes is a good round answer for this.
Yeah.
Can we just say that her name's Regina and they call her Reggie, and I love that.
I love that too.
Yeah, I
love that.
Yes. All right. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you hear, you can find more great episodes over on our website, www.millennialsatthemoviehouse.com, or wherever you find your podcasts. Curious about updates, extras from our episodes, or want to add your 2 cents about a reviewed movie? We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both is @themoviemillies. Check us out and make sure to follow us. So until next time.
We're millennials.
And we'll see you at the movie house.
Was it worth it, man?
I suppose
She
so.
just has snacks
About how
in her pocketbook. I relate to that.
I don't know.